One of the most concentrated funds on Wall Street just made a very large, very specific bet. In the first quarter of 2026, Lone Pine Capital, the firm built out of the Tiger management family, known for taking a small number of names and sizing them huge, opened a brand new position in a company called TeraWulf. Almost $290 million between them. All of it new money. Here's the part that makes you look twice. TeraWulf is, on paper, a Bitcoin miner. Not Nvidia, not a hyperscaler, a coin miner. And in the very same quarter, Bridgewater Associates, the largest hedge fund in the world, running cold systematic macro, independently opened a position in the exact same name. So here is the question worth a few minutes. Why is a concentrated growth giant putting 9 figures into a Bitcoin miner? And why did a systematic macro fund land on the same name in the same window? Every number here comes straight from their filings with the SEC. Start with the filings, because the size and the overlap are the whole story. Lone Pine Capital opened a brand new position in TeraWulf. Just under 20 million shares, worth about $287 million at quarter end. That is not a toe in the water. That is a concentrated fund making a real sized bet. In the very same quarter, Bridgewater Associates also opened a new TeraWulf position. About 190,000 shares, close to $3 million. Now, be honest about the shape of this. Lone Pine is roughly 99% of the dollars here. This is overwhelmingly Lone Pine's conviction call, not an equal three-way split. But the signal is still this. A quarter earlier, neither fund owned a single share, 0. And 2 firms that look at the world in completely different ways both decided independently in the same window that this single name was worth starting. Why does it matter that it was these 2 specifically? Because of who they are. Lone Pine Capital, founded by Stephen Mandel, is famous for highly concentrated, deeply researched bets on quality growth. They run a tight book, and they size their best ideas large. So a brand new 9-figure position is a genuine statement of conviction, not a sprinkle. Bridgewater Associates, founded by Dalio, is the largest hedge fund on earth, running systematic, top-down strategies driven by data rather than by a single stock picker's hunch. So you have a hand-picked, high-conviction growth bet and a rules-driven macro machine, arriving at the same small-cap name in the same quarter without coordinating. The dollars are lopsided. The independence is not. And when a conviction bet and a systematic process point at the same door, it is at least worth understanding what each of them might be seeing. And here is the twist that makes the bet make sense. TeraWulf in 2026 is not simply a bet on the price of Bitcoin. On paper, it is still a miner. That's how most casual investors still file it. But the company runs a large, power-rich data center campus, and it has been publicly redirecting that capacity away from pure coin mining and toward high-performance compute hosting. In other words, toward AI. So when a concentrated growth fund puts nearly $300 million to work here, it may not be buying a Bitcoin miner at all. It may be buying a power and data center company that simply happens to have started out mining coins. That reframe changes the entire thesis. And it is the cleanest explanation for why a growth concentrator and a macro fund could both show up at the same name. This is the same pattern the channel flagged at Hut 8 a quarter earlier. Smart money treating a miner as power infrastructure. So why power, of all things? Here's the part most people miss about the AI build-out. Everyone watches the processors, Nvidia, the chip makers, the hyperscalers. But all of that computing has to run somewhere. And somewhere means a building with a grid connection big enough to feed thousands of energy-hungry processors. The bottleneck is no longer the chip. The bottleneck is the power, the land, and the substations behind the rack. TeraWulf already owns a large power-connected campus. It was built to mine coins, and the same megawatts can be redirected to host AI workloads. That is substrate underneath the entire industry. And for years it was priced as if it were nothing more than a leveraged bet on Bitcoin. At roughly $14.43 a share at quarter end, this was a real mid-cap company. which makes two independent funds starting a position right here, at the same time. More interesting, not less. Now, one quarter does not make a thesis. A 13F tells you what they bought, it does not tell you why, and it does not tell you whether they will keep buying. So the real test is the next filing, which lands in August. If Lone Pine adds to TeraWulf, and Bridgewater stays in or builds, then this was genuine conviction, and the power infrastructure thesis is strengthening. But if Lone Pine trims, or Bridgewater quietly exits, then it was a shorter-term trade rather than a structural call. Either way, here is the part that matters most. None of this is a tip, and you do not have to take my word or anyone else's for any of it. Every figure in this video comes straight from each fund's own filings with the Securities and Exchange Commission. No estimates, no insider whispers, just open data. So go pull the 13Fs for yourself and verify every number.